everybody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. One of my favorite shows of the year, honest to God. You're talking about the day before Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Eve, right? We get the build-up before the football, before the family, before the food. A lot revolving around Thanksgiving that we're going to be talking about today on today's show, particularly on Carving Up the Context, something actually not entirely related to sports that I really did kind of want to sink my teeth into as we go into a Thanksgiving day with everything that's happened, obviously, over the course of the last 11 months, or really all year long. Definitely, if you can, please stay tuned 30 minutes from now for Carving Up the Context. I really think you're going to enjoy it and appreciate it. Stay tuned for that. We've also got a Thanksgiving tradition like none other. Not the Cowboys playing on Thanksgiving, not just that, but the fact that Jerry Jones is behind a microphone, or on the phone rather, through the microphone of the airwaves of a Dallas radio station, saying some wild stuff. And something really uncomfortable is going to need to happen in Dallas in order for this organization to get back on track. I'll get into that. Jerry Jones considering, hey, we may keep Mike McCarthy. Discuss that later in the show, why that would be obviously a terrible move and an illogical move in many sense. Getting that in 12 minutes. Bryson's best 10, my top 10 teams in the National Football League going into week 13. There's actually a brand new team that's never been on Bryson's best 10 ever that's going to be on this week. A lot of topsy-turvy, up and down, teams moving up, teams moving down. A lot of change from last week in week 12. And, of course, at the end of today's show, predictions for not one, not two, but three Thursday games because it is Thanksgiving. And one of the games, in fact, will be my Gobble It Up Game of the Year. We introduced that a couple of years ago in 2022. It's caught on. So Gobble It Up Game of the Year on Carving Up Live. Excited to get into that at the end of today's show. And please, if you want to, feel free, chime in the comment section. Let me know what you think about each and every topic. But first, so I missed the Harbaugh Bowl for the second time in my life. I remember when the 49ers played the Ravens back in Super Bowl 47, the Harbaugh Bowl, the ultimate one in Super Bowl 47. The 49ers fell up short to the Baltimore Ravens. I actually took San Francisco. Was wrong on that one. Took Jim Harbaugh again out of just an allegiance to Jim. I think he's a great coach. I love how he goes about his business. Not that against John, he's a great guy. But again, it's Steelers, Ravens. And again, I did think the Chargers had the advantage given my questions about this Baltimore defense. But Baltimore won the football game 30-23 over the Chargers in Los Angeles. Lamar Jackson was fantastic. 16 of 22, $177 passing, only 15 yards rushing, but accounted for not one, not two, but three touchdowns on the evening. He had a QBR 0 to 100 of 86.8 and a pass rating of 126.5. And Lamar, by the way, is first in virtually every quarterback stat. You talk about pass touchdowns, pass yards, QBR, passer rating, the whole bit. Lamar Jackson has been nothing short of spectacular. But if I'm a Ravens fan watching that game, and I'm not, you can see by the hat I'm wearing and the hoodie I'm wearing, not exactly a Ravens guy. I am a Lamar guy, not a Ravens guy. If I were a Ravens guy, though, I'd be really pissed off and really irritated and really agitated watching that football game play out, as well as a number of other football games for this now 8-4 Ravens team. There's only a half game back in a very competitive race between the Ravens and the Steelers for the AFC North. Why would I be irritated, you might ask? Why don't we do that every game? Not win. You're not going to win every game. Not even the Chiefs can do that. Not even the Lions can do that. Why can't we go by that offensive philosophy, or at least something akin to it, every game? My buddy Arthur Hurst, shout out to Arthur, won the 8 o'clock spot last night on the Grid Network. Check that show out every Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time on the Grid's YouTube channel. Arthur is a big-time Ravens fan. Keep saying it. Just give Derrick Henry the ball. Just give Derrick Henry the ball. By the way, the numbers back it up. The more you give Derrick Henry the ball, Baltimore's pretty good. When King Henry gets 20 or more carries, they're 5-0. When he gets less than 20 carries, they're 3-4. The formula is relatively simple. And by the way, in this game, shocker, 24 carries, $140. Average 5.8 yards a carry, and it helped the Ravens win a game that they trailed 10-0. And by the way, they were also Baltimore in this game was able to win time of possession despite trailing 10-0 early to start this contest. Give the ball to Derrick Henry. And I feel like that has been really the interesting part about the criticism of the Ravens and their losses and the praise in their wins is when Baltimore breaks through, they have a big-time performance, they blow out of Denver, right? They win a big game like that. Like that's, if there is one team, maybe Detroit would be my first pick, I'm not sure. But if there's one team that I would not want to play on the road at 1 o'clock, especially if they're like coming off a loss or something, it's Baltimore. Last team I'd want to play. Along with Detroit. You do not want to play Detroit in a 1 o'clock game in the event they lost, but they haven't done that since week 2, so they don't really apply as much as the Ravens do. You don't want to play them in that spot. But when they win and they smoke teams, it's, Lamar's the best quarterback in the world. Lamar Mahomes, it's one way or the other. MVP of the league. And by the way, Lamar is a more than justifiable case that he should be MVP of the league. I think it's Saquon Barkley right now, but you can make the case as Lamar be a close race if they held the MVP vote today. But when they lose, like they basically always do to Pittsburgh, like they basically always do to Kansas City, or if they lose a weird game like the Raiders and the Browns, the thing is, well, why don't you give Derrick Henry the ball? Why don't you give the most consistently great, or at least the longest string of great play guy, Derrick Henry, the football, which we just showed you the numbers. 5-0 when he gets 20 or more carries, 3-4 when he gets less than that. It's a little inconsistent and it's a little wishy-washy and a bit of a double standard that we're going to give Lamar Jackson all the praise in the world, deservedly so, by the way. Again, a game like he played Monday night, he was great. I'm a Justin Herbert guy, been that since he was a rookie. Lamar Jackson not only is better than Justin Herbert, but played better than Justin Herbert on Monday Night Football. Although Quentin Johnson didn't help Herbert's case. That's another conversation for another show and potentially for this offseason for the Chargers if this drop promise continues. But when Lamar Jackson loses, we blame John Harbaugh. We blame the defense. We blame everybody but Lamar Jackson. When in reality, and this is an uncomfortable stat, but we keep showing you, Lamar's awesome. Lamar wins like 75-ish% of his games, 2-time league MVP, the whole bit. But when he's facing the team that knows him best, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team that is in his and the entire AFC, frankly, at this point, the NFL's way, in terms of winning a championship, the Kansas City Chiefs, or if it's just a playoff game, this is Lamar Jackson. 4-12, more turnovers than touchdowns, 289 total yards per game is pretty good, but only completes 59% of his throws and has a passer rating in the mid-70s. So we won't know, again, as it relates to that stat, until week 16 when the Steelers take on the Ravens. We could very well see a Kansas City-Baltimore rematch in the playoffs. That's more than on the board. And I do give Lamar, because that's a narrative I saw in the media from Lamar defenders. By the way, like myself, I love Lamar Jackson. I may be a Steelers fan. I love the guy. I think he's uber talented. I think he's a great dude, outstanding leader for that locker room. I think he is a true game-changing player, and the Ravens would be dead in the water without him. No doubt about it. But if he is that great, and again, I've always said this about athletes. I've said this about guys that have struggled, like Aaron Judge, like Joel Embiid. If the narrative is you need to be even greater in the playoffs than you are in the regular season, in certain spurts, yes, you do. If it's a game, if we're talking about basketball or baseball, if it's a game 6, game 7, you got to elevate. You got to elevate yourself into legendary status. But throughout the course of the playoffs, just maintain your greatness. If you elevate, then you're an all-time legend. You're Mahomes, you're Jordan, you're LeBron, you're Brady. Like, that's different. Lamar Jackson not only maintains it, he plummets. And I feel like the narrative after that game last night was, you say Lamar Jackson can't win big games, pretty big game, basically ensured that the Ravens, again, unless they just fall apart, which I don't think any of us think they will, ensured that worst case scenario, they're the 5 seed, which is a great spot to be in the AFC because you're probably going to Houston and the Texans are falling apart right now. So Baltimore, Houston, the Ravens would be favored. I'd pick the Ravens to win that game. No doubt about it, especially after what Lamar did to Houston a year ago in the playoffs. So it's a big game. No one said Lamar Jackson couldn't win big games. But can he win the gotta-have-it games? Because again, if not for... Could you have asked for a better spot against, again, I love my Steelers. I love Mike Tomlin, everybody. But could you have asked for a better spot on the road in Pittsburgh? The Steelers don't score a touchdown at all. And you have multiple opportunities to take the lead, at the end to tie the game. Now, the 2-point conversion might have some play calling problems. I'm not sure what was going on right there in that situation. Lamar ain't nobody to throw to. I'll give a pass to that. For the course of the game, Lamar Jackson simply was not good. He was good against the Chiefs. Not special. nor really is he against the Chiefs. He has one single victory in his career against the Chiefs and the Steelers, and in the playoffs, he has a total of 2 of those wins. I love the guy, and I think this Ravens team is really dangerous. You don't want to run into them in the playoffs or really any day for that matter. But when they win games like this, the story's Lamar Jackson. Folks, Derrick Henry, as great as Lamar was, Derrick Henry was the reason they won that game. Or the biggest reason they won that game anyway. Derrick Henry was efficient. He was great in the short yardage situations, right? He was, again, anytime it looked like the Chargers could, Derrick Henry would break off a big run, or he'd break off a 5-6 yard run, bleed the clock, put yourself in position where you can have, field goal opportunities. That's what the Ravens do. That's who they are at their best. Lamar Jackson, somewhere around 24 attempts. Now, that's not to say he's a system quarterback. That's to say, hey, throw the ball 24 times, run it like 10. Then he's one of the most unstoppable players in the league. So that's always, a lot of that's a John Harbaugh criticism is, what are you trying to be? Like the trade for Deontay Johnson was weird. It hasn't panned out yet. Maybe it will. There's a lot of season left to go. But when I watch this Ravens team, if I were a Ravens fan, I'd be thinking, why couldn't we at least try? Again, not to say you should be predictable, but can we establish some iteration of this? Derrick Henry gets a bunch of carries. So does Lamar Jackson. Lamar's great with the deep ball, with Bateman, and with guys like Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews has been good. Get opportunities like that. You can win a lot of games. And by the way, the Ravens have done that many times this season. They're undefeated once again, like I said, when Derrick Henry gets 20 or more carries. So that's something just to keep in mind if you are somebody, by the way, like myself, who loves Lamar Jackson, but would like there to be the same energy for Lamar when he falls short as we get for other quarterbacks. I criticize Josh Allen when he doesn't play well. In the very rare instances in which Mahomes has played poorly in the playoffs, was really like once or twice, we criticize Mahomes. We criticize Burrow. We criticize Burrow, and Burrow has been the best or second best quarterback in football this year. But because the Bengals have a losing record, I haven't been on Burrow because I'm like, hey, Joe's doing his part. I don't know what you want the guy to do. We rip Dak if he has a half terrible game. Like there's a lot. Herbert, when he doesn't play well, get on Herbert. I would like to see that same energy for Lamar Jackson, especially when you consider, like, I'm willing to give Mahomes somewhat a benefit of the doubt because, he's won 3 Super Bowls and 2 league MVPs. He's pretty good. If Tom Brady had a bad stretch, you'd be like, it happens. Whereas Lamar, the bad stretches seem to always happen against Pittsburgh, against Kansas City, and in the playoffs. That's all I'm saying. So get mad at me if you want, but the numbers back it up. Emphatically, I might add. But listen, again, Baltimore's running plays. I mean, again, when the Chargers go up 10-0, I'm like, oh man, like I'm not thinking blow. I'm thinking, hey, it's Lamar Jackson. He's going to respond. The guy can play from behind. That used to be a criticism early in Lamar's career. Oh, he can't play from behind. That got snuffed out a while ago. He can absolutely do that. But it was a matter of, okay, they're establishing the run game. Dobbins is doing his thing. Justin Herbert's got it rolling with his arm and with his legs. Oh my goodness. And to Baltimore's credit, and you'll see where I've got him in Bryce's best end. Spoiler, they're obviously on it in about 30 minutes on the show. The fact that the Ravens defense has been at least better as of late. Not special, not great, but better. Not as bad if we can put it in that form, in that context. So kudos to Baltimore on the win. And listen, that Steelers-Ravens AFC North chase is going to be something else. Steelers got a massive game against Cincinnati. Frankly, Cincinnati has a massive game against Pittsburgh, so definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. Again, feel free to chime in the comment section. Let me know what you think. I did want to shift to the Dallas Cowboys, though. I know it's that they're the it's like we're beating a dead horse here, but we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
So they won a game on Sunday. Kudos to them. They beat Washington in what was a wild finish. Dallas, from a technical standpoint, was kind of terrible in the last 3 minutes. They gave up a quick drive, up 10 with 3 minutes to go, give up a quick drive to Washington for a field goal, go 3 and out, give up the 86-yard touchdown on the one play, obviously. Yeah, they get bailed out by the extra point miss, and then they score on an onside kick up 1, which you never do. I get the kids never score before. Dude, go down. Cooper Rush, you take a knee, we go home. Instead, Washington, slim chances, but down 8 with 14 seconds left. You're not dead. You have a shot to win the game. Whereas if you take a knee, you have a 0% chance to win. So Dallas won. Kudos to them. They're 4-7 now. But Jerry Jones is on Dallas radio, as he is every week, like all owners in the National Football League are on the local radio station. It's a common occurrence. He was on the radio station in Dallas, and he was asked about Mike McCarthy. Is it because this is a big win for the Cowboys, and it showed like they still got heart. Listen, organizations tank, players don't, coaches don't. Mike McCarthy is on the last year of his deal, and we all thought, he's a lame duck coach. The Cowboys are having their worst season under McCarthy. He's got no chance. And then Jerry Jones said this.
Well, I don't think that's crazy at all. That's not crazy. And listen, Mike McCarthy is an outstanding coach. I was listening to the game last night, watching it, and Aikman was talking about it, and he's reiterated that several times publicly. This Super Bowl winning coach. And Mike McCarthy has been there, done that. He's got great ideas. So bottom line is that in no place in my body language or anything else have you seen indications about what we're going to be doing relative to this staff at the end of this year.
All right. So here's the thing. First of all, the first takeaway from that quote is obviously Jerry Jones values what Troy Aikman says. Remember when Troy Aikman had the quote when he was talking about how, I think it was during the Ravens and the Buccaneers Monday Night Football game. This was, a month ago? And he was talking about how he was watching Ravens film, and, well, the Ravens happened to play the Cowboys, so he just so happened to be studying Cowboys tape, and he was talking about how the Cowboys run lazy routes, and then Jerry was like, Troy's credible. He's got a point there. It was a terrible moment from Jerry. So obviously Troy Aikman, and Troy Aikman's a smart guy. He knows the heck he's talking. He's Troy freaking Aikman. He's a Hall of Famer, 3-time Super Bowl champion. Troy Aikman's one of the most respected voices in the business, as he should be. So we know Troy Aikman holds real estate in Jerry's head. More importantly than that, the thing with Jerry Jones, and I feel like what I'm about to say is a moot point for Jerry, but for most, it kind of makes sense. But Jerry doesn't do business, at least in a football context, really any context, for better or for worse. And football tends to be for worse in any other context than everybody else. If you thought that Mike McCarthy was going to be the head coach in 2025, why wouldn't you extend him before the year? Reason I say that, Jerry Jones just suggesting that Mike McCarthy could be the head coach in 2025. He didn't extend him before the season. What about this year would convince Jerry that's our guy? That is our guy for the long term, because we could show you the numbers. I mean, just by the eye test, like we all know this, but Dallas has been a shell of what they've been in the last 3 years. Now, a lot of that's the injury to Dak, obviously, but at the same time, this team wasn't good when Dak was healthy. Okay, so you see obviously the stats there, 3 straight 12-5 seasons. They averaged somewhere in the ballpark of 30 points per game. Not a playoff success, but they were in the playoffs. They won 12 games 3 years in a row. And then obviously this year, 4-7. They're only averaging 20 points per game, and they're third in their division. The thing, though, is this. Because I was talking to RJ Ochoa. Shout out to him. He does a fantastic job blogging the boys, SB Nation. Definitely give him a follow on social media for all things Cowboys. I had him on the show back after their the Cowboys week 3 loss to Baltimore. And I was asking him, I'm like picking his brain, like, the Cowboys better than me. Like, what is, like, Jerry's saying all these different things. Like, does it make any sense to you? And RJ had a great quote, and he even tweeted it yesterday when this thing that Jerry said came out on the radio. And he said, Jerry just says a lot of things. Jerry just likes to, like, again, this is what RJ said, but what I interpret it as, okay, Jerry just likes to hear himself talk. And sometimes stuff like Mike McCarthy might be back despite having his worst year with the Cowboys and despite being a lame duck coach and despite the fact that this could be the most in-depth coaching pool this offseason. It points back to Jerry likes to talk. Okay, so here's what I would say to that. And I will pose this in question for him. If you could go to Jerry Jones today, and you said, Jerry, I'm going to present you 2 scenarios because you are, I believe Jerry's 82 years old. Just turned 82 last October. You're 82 years old. Jerry has been vocal and adamant. Hey, I'm human just like everybody else. I don't have forever. If you go to Jerry, say, Jerry, I can guarantee you the Cowboys will become a dynasty again. Regardless of the coach. It could be McCarthy. It could be Bill Belichick. It could be Mike Vrabel, anybody. Dak Prescott's the quarterback, and CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, and you build the team around them, and you win 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls. You take the mantle from the Kansas City Chiefs, and it is America's team once again. You have the most Super Bowls, and you're on as high a pedestal as ever, especially breaking a 30-year drought. Like, it'd be huge for the Cowboys. I'll give you that scenario, or I'll give you the other scenario in which you win 0 Super Bowls, but you get to continue to do as many radio appearances, as many post-game interviews, as many opportunities as you can get to make yourself the focal point of the national attention surrounding America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, but you win 0 Super Bowls. But any other chance you do win 3 Super Bowls or more, who knows, the Cowboys become a dynasty again, but you're not a media focal point. I think Jerry Jones would choose the latter. I think because Jerry talks about, and I believe him, by the way, when he says there's not a check I wouldn't write for a Super Bowl, all this. We hear it every year during a State of the Cowboys speech. He does every year. He gets a little teary-eyed and a little hokey, and it's nothing. He's got the best team. Oh, my God. I've always said I do believe Jerry. Excuse me, I don't think he's a Dan Snyder or something. I do believe truly that Jerry Jones wants to win a Super Bowl. I think when the Cowboys lose, he's crushed. You can see his body language. He's devastated. And even this year, when the Cowboys have had kind of the season from hell to a certain degree, he's gotten very defensive. Jerry's pissed. But at the same time, he's still the focal point of the national media attention. Jerry Jones can still go home. Hey, I own the Dallas Cowboys. I'm worth, $8-9 billion? Business is still booming. The Cowboys game tomorrow night, Thanksgiving, against the New York Giants, probably still, despite both teams being god-awful, probably going to be the most watched game of the NFL regular season. Just by virtue of it being Cowboys, midday Thanksgiving Day game, a lot of people are going to watch. Jerry wants to win his way as long as he, first and foremost, gets the credit. It's a big reason why McCarthy being brought up or McCarthy coming back in 2025, that possibility being brought up signals to Bill Belichick, to Mike Vrabel. It's been suggested Deion Sanders. I don't think Deion's coming, but let's just say for the sake of argument, Deion Sanders. All 3 very strong-willed individuals. All 3 that would instantly become, dare I say, certainly Deion and Belichick would be bigger than Jerry Jones. It signals to them, he likes the guy that defers to Jerry. Okay. And by the way, McCarthy's not a bad. I would make the case that since Jimmy Johnson, McCarthy's the best coach the Cowboys have had. You could say Barry Switzer because he won a Super Bowl. Barry Switzer won with Jimmy Johnson's roster, and that was one of the most loaded rosters in the history of the league was the 90s Cowboys. And by the way, they added Deion Sanders. Like, that team was just stacked. But it signals to those coaches, oh, okay, he's going to take the guy that allows him to just got to be him. Belichick won't go for that. Deion Sanders won't be crazy about it. Mike Vrabel won't be crazy about that. And so it and this is uncomfortable for the Cowboys organization, certainly. I'm not sure it works, but it's worth a shot. It's time the Jones kids, Jerry Jr., Steven, Charlotte, I think those are the 3 kids. It's time they have a serious come to Jesus moment with their dad. I think we're at a point in time with this Cowboys team where, in this Cowboys organization, it's something every week. It's a shiny new thing every single week, and it has absolutely jack squat to do with football. We can talk about these glamour franchises like the Cowboys, like the Lakers, like the Yankees, like Alabama football and Duke basketball and Duke men's basketball, UConn women's basketball, South Carolina these days. Can't believe they lost, by the way, recently. But we could talk about all these glamour franchises. There's a lot of things that's not going to have much to do with the sport that happens around them. A lot of drama, a lot of attention. But with those other franchises, as much drama as around the Lakers and the Yankees and some of those other college programs that I mentioned, the focal point is still winning championships and still winning games. The Yankees have drama as it relates to them not coming up big in the playoffs, a bad decision by Aaron Boone, Aaron Judge not showing up, but those are on the field related. Whereas in Dallas, it's like clockwork every other year. Dak Prescott's contract. Next year's going to be Micah Parsons' contract. It was CeeDee Lamb's contract. This person's contract. That person. This negotiation. Ezekiel Elliott and Jalen Smith and this person negotiating. And is this their coach in the hot seat? It's Jerry Jones. What Jerry Jones say on the radio this Tuesday? McCarthy may come back. He's pissed at the radio host. That happened in Kansas City. That happened in Buffalo or Detroit or Pittsburgh or Baltimore or these days the LA Chargers, LA Rams. I mean, it's just not, and it's not helping. If you're the Jones children, you ask Jerry, and this, again, hard as hell. I get it. But you ask him, is this helping us to win a Super Bowl? Is this bringing us any closer to winning a Super Bowl than what we were before? Dad, of course, Steven calls him Jerry, so whatever. You'll still get the credit if we win a Super Bowl. We need a GM. We need an individual who is used to putting together rosters. By the way, great rosters. Like the Lions hired Brad Holmes from the Rams, who are used to putting together great rosters. So Brad Holmes comes to Detroit and puts together a great roster. Take somebody from Philly. Take somebody from the division rival. Take somebody maybe from the Rams, maybe from Kansas City, maybe from one of these well-run franchises that is seen behind the scenes, seen how it works, putting together championship-level rosters. Hire them. You employ them. You be part. You can still be part of decisions. You just don't have the final say as it relates to personnel. And if you don't like the job he's doing, fire him. You're still in control. You're still Jerry Jones. We're still going to focus on what you're doing. And so right now for Dallas, it's just a matter of I feel like it's the guys. I don't want to say the guy's lost his mind. I don't want to be harsh right now, but it's nonsensical stuff that's coming out of Jerry Jones on a weekly basis. It's like, hey, Mike McCarthy is having the worst season of his coaching career with the Cowboys. He's on a lame duck deal, and actually we might actually bring him back this year, and he's a Super Bowl winner, and Troy Aikman said something that made me think we should keep him. It's just it's stuff that has very little to do with what is happening on the playing surface, and no other team does this. And we clown the ones that do, and we clown the Cowboys. I'm not going to act like we're just Cowboys are immune from criticism, but it's a disaster. And uncomfortable conversations need to happen in Dallas, Texas at the Star Practice Facility. That I do know. Now, will they happen? Probably not, but they need to happen. All right, we'll be back in just a minute for Carving Up Live. I implore you, I would ask you on this Thanksgiving Eve to stay tuned because we have a big-time segment for Carving Up the Context. Doesn't have a ton to do with sports, but nonetheless, the day before Thanksgiving, this year in particular, I think it's an important message to send. And I'll do my best to do so after the break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Bryson's Best 10 coming up in about 12 to 15 minutes. My top 10 teams going into week 13 of this NFL season. Be sure to stay tuned for that. But this is a segment, Carving Up the Context. We do it in the middle of every show on Wednesday, and especially with this being Thanksgiving Eve, I thought this was a good time to send what I think is an important message and try and provide the context around it to start the segment. So, without further ado, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, today is Thanksgiving Eve. I'm going to upload this to YouTube tomorrow morning. So by the time you're watching this on YouTube, it's Thanksgiving Day. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. You know, I've been thinking over the last few days and few weeks about tomorrow and the family dynamics that we know happen every year. And, you know, listen, Thanksgiving, I want to say this at the front end. Thanksgiving is personally my favorite holiday because, you know, the reason folks say they love Thanksgiving is actually, I feel like kind of the opposite is why I love it. Folks say, oh, you don't have the stress of gifts. You don't have to go shopping, get gifts and whatever. You don't give gifts. I actually disagree with that statement. Because to me, if you are making food, if you are putting time in to serve food, which to me is serving someone is the greatest calling that one can possibly come to in their life. I think we have all been blessed with talents and abilities in order to serve others in our own distinct way. You're serving people, you're serving food to people around the Thanksgiving table. I don't think there's few gifts that you can give that is more thoughtful and more filling, certainly physically, but also in a spiritual sense and in a relational sense than food on Thanksgiving. So that's why I love the holiday. And by the way, you get to watch football in the process. Like, come on, of course I love it and spend time with family. But listen, we had. Should we call this a divisive election? I think it was somewhere along those lines. It's pretty back and forth. Probably the craziest campaign that I can possibly remember in my life. With started with the debates, and Biden looked terrible, and then you had the first of two assassination attempts on Trump. The first one came dangerously close to doing God knows what. And then Biden drops out, and then Kamala Harris is in, and there's a lot of energy around her. And then there's the debate where I think she smoked him, and then he proceeded to smoke her in the election, winning all 7 of the swing states. And by the way, winning the popular vote, which no Republican has done since 2004. And in the process, there was a lot of ugly things said from one side to the other. And not only just from politicians, because we expect that its campaigns are heated, but between friends, family, relatives, everybody involved. And I think what I would caution people on doing, I'm more talking because I'm a political independent, just full transparency. Lean left socially, lean right fiscally. One thing that I would caution, certainly my friends on the right, but also my friends on the left of doing is, okay, the Republicans have won and shying away from believing what you believe. I'm not talking about the Democratic Party. I'm talking about individual Americans who happen to lean left. Is you were going to have disagreements with your Uncle Billy tomorrow anyway. Okay, your candidate lost. So what was the difference? You were showing up to gloat. Now, if Uncle Billy, by the way, I actually do have an Uncle Billy. He would not do the things that I'm saying that I'm doing. So shout out to him. But if said uncle shows up and is gloating, is a bit brash in his celebration of the president-elect's victory, let him do it. And not only let him do it, because to me, there's a notion about Thanksgiving that I really detest, like really, really detest. As I said, there's 2 topics that are, or really 3 if we want to be technical about it, but 3 topics that are off the table, proverbially and literally, for Thanksgiving. You can't talk about them. One, I'm actually in favor of not talking about. Sex. Don't talk about it. But the other 2, religion and politics. Are there 2, along with sports in my view, are there 3 more interesting topics to have, or topics and discussions to have than those 3? Now, of course, I'm going to go all in on the sports. I'm gonna have as many conversations about sports you want. If you want to have a debate with your 69-year-old grandfather, and he's talking about the NFL ain't as physical as it used to be, and it ain't football anymore, have at it. It's fun. It's what makes it Thanksgiving. But in religion, have at it. I'm in a family where we mostly pretty much line up on our beliefs as it relates to our faith. As it relates to politics, though, is there a better time then to have the discussions about what you believe? Because to me, I've always said this, in politics and in otherwise, the best thing to do, the goal of discussions, even debates, is to understand the person better. It is not to convert them to your side. Because if the intended goal in your mind is to, I'm going to convert this person to my position, you're going to fall up short every single time. Because eventually when you fail, when you're bringing out facts to the table you think are indisputable and this will be the thing that wins, it's not. Because life experiences inform how people feel about certain things. And that's why they believe what they believe. Now, I want to be abundantly clear when I say this. As it relates to me, moral positions such as because listen, this is America and it is 2024, but this still obviously, of course, exists. If you have a relative in your family that is, dare I say, a bit racist, have the discussion with them, but that's ultimately their thing that they have to resolve. That's their flaw that they have to deal with. Nothing you can really do to change that. Have discussions, sure, but unfortunately not a ton you can do. That's their decision for them to make in their heart of hearts. But as it relates to politics, you're already there. You may not get a better opportunity to discuss your position. Hey, here's why I feel the way I feel about particular issues. This is why I voted for the person that I voted for. I want to hear why you voted for the person you voted for, because what I would caution my friends on the left in doing, and it's been done at least by higher ups in the Democratic Party, and I've become very disturbed when I've seen this, is painting all of the supporters of this current president-elect and former president as irredeemable. And by the way, having similar character to him. Listen, I've talked about Trump many times on the show. I think I've made my position abundantly clear on him. I'm, to put it mildly, not a fan at all. All of his supporters don't fall into that same category. Yes, there are supporters of Donald Trump that I find truly just awful. Awful. But did everybody? The man won the popular vote. Republicans don't win popular votes, folks. Are all of them like that? Are all of them? Do all of them have legal woes, multiple infidelities, questionable character? No, they had life experiences that inform the way they voted. I may disagree with it. You may disagree with it. But let's talk about it. Because you're not going to convert them to your, likely, at least that to me, that shouldn't be the goal. You're not going to convert them to your position. You're going to try and get them to understand you better. It's, again, going back to what I said, there's no better time, in my view, than to talk politics than at Thanksgiving. But again, in a discussion, it may get a little heated. People may raise their voices. But as long as to me, there should be some guardrail set for it that, hey, no personal shots, no attacks on the other person's character. Let's talk about this. Let's see how we feel the way we feel. Don't skip Thanksgiving. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure there's a more important Thanksgiving to attend than this one. And that would be my message for those, my friends on the left, of which I have many. For my friends on the right, of which I also have many, I would also caution you on gloating. Because if we know one thing about politics, it is that one party does not stay in power for a very long time. We can talk about midterms and all that, but as it relates to the presidency, we've gone from a Bush to a Clinton to a Bush to an Obama to a Trump to a Biden, back to Trump. Back and forth and back and forth. We haven't had back-to-back presidents from the same party since the 80s and early 90s. That's just not really what we do in America. We tend to be a little bit of a flip-flop country. That's what we do. We voted for the red team this time, voted for the blue team last time, and back and forth before that. So what I would caution those on the right is you haven't gained control for all time in this nation. Blue team didn't do it. Your team didn't do it. No team really has the capabilities under the current Constitution to do that. So I think on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, is it going to be uncomfortable? Yes, but to me, can I tell you what's more uncomfortable? Small talk. Hey, how's your career going, buddy? Right? Or, hey, when are you having kids? Are you having kids next year? Or, who's this person that you're bringing to Thanksgiving? This another boyfriend or girlfriend you got coming in here? That's uncomfortable. Now, that's going to happen, obviously. It's Thanksgiving, and people can be quite judgy. As it relates to avoiding politics, to me, that's the last time you avoided. It's interesting, and maybe this is just a personal thing. Maybe I'm wrong on all of this, but I think, again, politics and religion are about two as not important, but as interesting topics as you could possibly have at the Thanksgiving table. Intentionally make a point. I would advise, regardless of where you lean politically, sit with somebody you disagree with. Bring it up, not in an accusatory manner, but in a, I want to talk about this. I want to understand you better. Because I think I've said this many times on Carving It Up, folks, at the rate that we are going, it's not sustainable. We can't have a healthy America if we keep going down the path that we've been going down. Listen, Trump may be about to be president, and as president, he's going to control a lot of things. He does not have the power, nor does any man or woman who may or may not hold that office. They do not have the power to control how you deal with the relationships in your life. That's up to you. And if someone isn't receptive to that, let that be their problem. That's on them. Nothing you could do about that. You did your part. Now, again, I would also advise if there's a toxic situation in your family unrelated to politics, or maybe it is related to politics, and the person uses their politics as shield one way or the other to be a cruel person, that's different. I'm talking about you. You voted for Trump. You voted for Harris. Let's talk about it. So, this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I think that's the best time to have the discussion. And while you're in the process, tell your uncle that helmet hits aren't. It's probably a good thing that those have been limited in recent years in football. CTE is a real thing, guys. So yeah, I just think I've been thinking about that for a while, especially since the election. And to be frank, I'm going to be honest with you guys. As somebody who knows a lot of folks who voted for both candidates and who did vote for Kamala Harris, my message, and again, my message after the election and my take is on YouTube. If you want to get my take on that, feel free. It's about 20 minutes long. Feel free to take from that what you will. Had she won, my thing was going to be, okay, she's going to be the president now. Let's move on from this division. Let's move on from again, we're going to fight with each other. That's called being humans. Forget politics. It's called being human. But let's get to a point where we can at the very least tolerate the presence of the other person with you. Because at the end of the day, Rome wasn't conquered in a day. You can't get to being a more united country, a more perfect union, if you will, in one day. But one day can start the process. Do that on Thanksgiving when, hopefully, all things considered, the food is good. As I'm trying to talk, my Wi-Fi went for a second. I apologize for that. Is there a better time to have those discussions than then? That's what I would say. I'm looking at my monitor right now. Yeah, okay, looks like we're back. Okay, Wi-Fi went out there for a second. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll upload this video and put it on YouTube. But listen, I love this country. If you're an American watching, you love this country, I imagine. And regardless of how we voted, I just wish we could get to a point where who you voted for is not the end-all, be-all in a relationship. And I think this is the perfect opportunity around the country on Thanksgiving Day to try and bridge those divides. It's not going to happen in a day. You're not going to do it by the time you finish your pumpkin pie. And by the way, pumpkin pie. I need to move on to Bryce's best 10 before I get hungry. Let's talk about Bryce's best 10. My top 10 teams in the National Football League. Very, very excited. There's a brand new team in Bryce's best 10 this week, going into week 13. It's Thanksgiving week. Multiple teams that are on this list are going to be playing tomorrow. Two. But still, a third of the team's playing. We're going to be seeing in action tomorrow. One of them, obviously, on Black Friday. That, of course, being Kansas City. But where do I have them ranked, you might ask? Well, glad you did. So let's go and get on it. Here we go. Week 13. All right, so again, I teased it early in the show to start the show. A team that has not been in all season long, that's going to be this week for the very first time in the history of Bryce's Best 10. At number 10, welcome to the list, Denver Broncos. The Broncos are now the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. Well, Bo Nix has been nothing short of fantastic in the last few games. If you look at the last 8 games, 16 touchdowns, 2 picks, a passer rating over 100, really has kind of closed the gap with Jaden Daniels. You can make the case maybe Bo Nix might be the Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, at least at this year, with about a month and change to go in the regular season. Sean Payton is always football. I thought he was very unfairly maligned with the comments about the Jets coaching staff in particular. Goes out again. Apologize for that. See if we can get the connection back on going right here. Watch my monitor. What do we have? Hold on, just watching my monitor, making sure we got it back. Okay, connection is back. Anyway, speaking of Sean Payton, I think one of the more unfairly maligned coaches in the National Football League after the comments he made about Nat Hackett. He was obviously and objectively correct in those assessments then and now. Bo Nix has been excellent. By the way, this Broncos defense has been unbelievable all season long. I think they got the best corner in football in Pat Surtain. Cortland Sutton, underrated receiver for a while. He's got himself a real quarterback now. He's playing exceptional football. Broncos right now are a playoff team. Not to be a fringe playoff team. Not this good. The Broncos are the 10th best team in the National Football League. A team I've loved all season long, and I still believe in them, but man, not like what I've seen on one side of the ball from this team in the last few games. At number 9, dropping 4 spots from last week in Denver's division, the AFC West, it is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So Justin Herbert was great in the Cincinnati game, was fine in the Baltimore Ravens game. Again, the Quentin Johnson drops really killed him in that matchup. I am not like what I've seen from the Los Angeles Chargers defense whatsoever in the past couple of weeks, and I'll explain why. So, coming into that game against Cincinnati, pass defense great, rush defense was great, not giving up a ton of points, but Joe Burrow goes crazy on you in Week 11. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry go nuts on you in Week 12 on Monday Night Football. So 2 primetime games, your defense does not show up. Justin Herbert has to be Superman in Week 11 and was not quite able to be Superman in Week 12. Thus, you lost. That said, still love Jim Harbaugh as a coach. This is going to be a playoff team. Herbert's excellent. This team clearly does need to add some receiver help after the season is over. I think we all kind of knew that coming in. Offensive line's really good. I still love their tackle combo. Joe Alt's been great. Needs to come back on the penalties a little bit from what I saw from him in that Baltimore game, but Joe Alt's been great. Need to see more from this Los Angeles Chargers defense because it has disappointed, no question, to get some of the more elite competition like a Joe Burrow, like a Lamar Jackson. The Chargers are the 9th best team in the National Football League. At number 8, up 1 spot from last week, it is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. Listen, they would have dropped out of Bryce's best 10th. They found a way to somehow lose that game to the Chicago Bears. They're probably lucky they just moved up a spot. Listen, I am not the standings counter. I'm not ranking the top 10 teams just based on the record. Just because the Vikings are 9-2 does not mean I think that they are better than the other teams ahead of them. That said, really impressed. I've been saying, when's the Sam Darnold bad moment going to happen? It happened against Jacksonville, but the Vikings still won because they were playing Mac Jones. But in a matchup against the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams going crazy in the 4th quarter. You go to overtime, your defense gets a stop, and Sam Darnold was clutch on 3rd down, drove the Vikings right down the field, walked it off with a field goal at the gun. TJ Hawkinson back of this lineup helps everything. Jordan Addison was great against the Bears. We know who Justin Jefferson is and what he represents. Probably the best receiver in football. Running game's great. Brian Flores, again, people are kind of getting on Brian Flores, who I think is one of the best defensive coaches in football, for the way Caleb Williams played. I gotta be honest, some of those throws were just great throws by Caleb, well schemed, but Caleb was able to be just a little bit better than what the scheme was from Minnesota. So well-coached team, probably, again, the best coach duo, one of the best coaches duos in the NFL, with Kevin O'Connell running the offense and Brian Flores running the defense. The Vikings are the 8th best team in the National Football League. Their division rival, though, stays where they were at last week. At number 7, it is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, who will be seen tomorrow night on Thanksgiving against the Dolphins, are the 7th best team in the National Football League. And here is why. I keep watching this Packers team, and every game for the last month, I'm like, I don't think they played that well. I don't think I've seen Jordan Love's ceiling quite yet. But they keep winning. They're 8-3. They have one loss in like the last month and a half or so, which was to Detroit. No shame in that whatsoever. Jordan Love was great against the 49ers, pass rating over 100. Josh Jacobs, 3 touchdowns. Again, they're supposed to beat San Francisco, and the Niners were missing basically all of their good players. But at the same time, it's a great Packers offensive line. We know what they can do, like I said, with Josh Jacobs in the running game. But I keep saying it week after week. This is the deepest wide receiving core certainly among young guys in the league, with guys like Jaden Reed, with Romeo Doubs, with Dontavian Wicks. Christian Watson's got to stop dropping the deep balls. I don't know what's going on with Christian Watson. I don't want to bring up the first play of his career against the Vikings when Aaron Rodgers basically ghosted him, and Aaron has a history of that. But I got to see more from Christian Watson on holding these deep balls. And by the way, this Packers defense has been great all season long, certainly better than it was last year. Getting the guy from Boston College has certainly helped. The Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, moving up 2 spots from last week, it is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. Lamar Jackson putting up yet another MVP campaign. He's first in basically all the big quarterback stats: passing yards, passing touchdowns, QBR, passer rating. Lamar Jackson's been absolutely outstanding. Touchdown interception ratio off the charts. The man just doesn't turn the ball over. I actually saw a compilation of his interceptions, and I couldn't find one where it was his fault. It was like, oh, bad throw by Lamar Jackson. Not saying he has had 0 bad throws, but turnover-worthy plays, he's at or near the bottom of that list. Derrick Henry, just listen. I brought the stat at the beginning of today's show. You know what? Let's bring it up again. When Derrick Henry gets the football on rush attempts 20 or more times, the Ravens are 5-0. When he doesn't, they have a losing record. They're 3-4. Formula's pretty simple. Give King Henry the football. He's going to do some special things for you, as is Lamar Jackson when he gets around 8 to 10 carries and throws the ball about 20 to 24 times. I have really liked what I've seen, though, from this Ravens defense. I have major questions, obviously, with them losing McDonald to the Seahawks, but also is they were arguably the worst pass defense in football. They've been pretty good over the last couple weeks, again, against an offensively limited Steelers team to a certain degree, but also against the Chargers. Justin Herbert just carved up a Bengals defense that wasn't good at stopping the pass, and without Roquan Smith, Ravens look pretty good, holding the Chargers to 23 in LA without Roquan Smith. Pretty impressive. Ravens move up a couple spots. They are the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, dropping a spot from where they were last week, it is my Pittsburgh Steelers, baby. Let's go. The Steelers are the 5th best team in the National Football League. And here is why. Look, you lose to Cleveland. A game you shouldn't have dropped, but you did. It was a snow globe. We get that. But anybody trying to make that an excuse, Browns are playing in the same weather as the Steelers were. Jameis Winston was just the man of the hour. He was great. Gives some great pregame and postgame messages. That man has a history. Has a future as a Baptist minister. I know it. Keep doing what you're doing, Jameis. But listen, this is a Steelers team that is one of the best defenses of football. Not great, oddly not great by the numbers at getting to the quarterback. A lot of that is TJ Watt seeing double and triple teams. They're not going to let 90 get involved in terms of rushing the passer. So guys like Highsmith, who's been beat up this year, Herbig. I want to see more Preston Smith, who we acquired from the Green Bay Packers. Other than that, secondary is great. Is a lot of ball hawks, particularly Dante Jackson. Offensively, look, as underwhelming as the performance was against the Cleveland Browns, Russell Wilson, a couple touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, pass rating over 100, or in the 90s over 100, somewhere in that ballpark. Russell was fine. Russell's deep ball still works. Listen, George Pickens, I love you, my man. I love you. When you got the ball in your hands, my man, you are special. For the love of God, stop getting into fights. Mid-game, mid-play, please. It's nothing wrong with the tussle every once in a while, but for the love of all that's good, you are so much more impactful with the ball in your hands than with your fist up somebody's face mask. Just stop, okay? But Mike Tomlin's one of the 5 best coaches of football. The Steelers team's going to bounce back against Cincinnati. I know it. The Steelers are the 5th best team in the National Football League, staying in the state of Pennsylvania, much to my chagrin, but I can't go against what my eyes are telling me. At number 4, moving up 2 spots from last week, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So Saquon Barkley is just unreal. We could show you the numbers that we showed you on Monday. He's doing something that only Jim Brown and Walter Payton in 1963 and 1977, respectively, did, and that is through 11 games, 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 or more yards per carry. Jim Brown, Walter Payton, Saquon Barkley, the only three in the history of the NFL to do that through their first 11 games. That is rare air, and that is putting it mildly. Those are two of the 4 greatest running backs in the history of the game. So Saquon's been special. But what about everybody else? Well, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Howie Roseman struck again. He got both of those guys in the draft, rookies who've been incredible. Vic Fangio fixed what I thought was a broken defense from last year, the pass rush. Now, they lost Brandon Graham probably for the season, which God bless Brandon Graham. Good dude, excellent player, and was having a great game against the Rams, by the way, before he got injured. That's a tough loss for that D-line that he's going to be tough to replace. But in the interior of their defensive line, offensive line is still... It's amazing. You lose Jason Kelce, one of the greatest centers ever, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt, once he's eligible for Canton. And it looks like you guys haven't missed a beat. Like, Detroit's the best O-line. I think Philly's right behind him. They're excellent up front. Jalen Hurts has been accurate. The deep ball has limited the turnovers, which is critical to his success as a quarterback. The Eagles, they're rolling, guys. They won 7 in a row. They are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3 and staying where they were at from last week, it is the back-to-back world champion, Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. I know they won by 3 points over the lowly Carolina Panthers. First of all, Carolina's actually been playing better. Bryce Young in particular has been playing better as of late. But let's talk about Kansas City, because the fact of the matter is this. All of their games are close, virtually, against the Saints. But yeah, they're the Saints. All of their games are close. They're saving their best for the playoffs. They, my friends, I saw it with the Golden State Warriors in the late 2010s. They are bored. I cannot tell you the number of games I saw Steph Curry and Kevin Durant just kind of going through the motions. Clay hit a shot, and Livingston would be. And then with 5 minutes to go, close game, just give the ball number 30, give the ball number 35. Everybody get the hell out of the way, let them go to work. That's what it is with Patrick Mahomes. When the game's tied, minute 50 to go, Andy Reid goes to Mahomes. He says, what's going on? Mahomes guy, what's going on? He's like, well, we're tied and we need a game-winning drive. Say less. Let me just boom, boom, boom. Let me run for like 25, 30 yards to get us in a field goal range, and we'll walk it off without our kicker, Harrison Butker, by the way. So they're replacing maybe the best kicker in football, still getting it done in special teams, still productive offensively despite the injuries to Kelce and others. Pacheco, by the way, and Aminihu, by the way, back this week, it looks like, for Friday's matchup against the Raiders. Anybody underestimating this team? We did it last year, and that didn't pan out so well. The Kansas City Chiefs are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. At number 2 is the only team that beat the Chiefs. It is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, same spot they were at last week, are the 2nd best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So again, they're off a bye, so we didn't see any Bills football last week. They're hosting the 49ers this week. Listen, Josh Allen, we talk about these MVP discussions, and the 2 names most primarily mentioned, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson, and for good reason. Josh Allen's raw numbers do not stack up to those guys. Matter of fact, I think either passing yards or passing touchdowns does Josh Allen stack up just in the top 10 at his position, the quarterback position. This is the best Josh Allen I've ever seen. So he's still great with his legs. He's still great, obviously, with his arm accuracy, all those different things. But he's cutting back the mistakes. He's cutting out. Again, Josh Allen's going to throw picks just like every other quarterback. It happens. I'm okay with taking a big risk. Matter of fact, I've ripped Aaron Rodgers for years for not taking big risks down the field. Just don't take risks that have virtually no chance of working out, barring a penalty. Like Josh Allen last year, I'm like, this dude's playing out of his mind. What is he doing? He's got that out this year. Joe Brady's done a great job with the running game, with the weapons. Ken Coleman's excellent. By the way, again, the fact they beat Kansas City, missing all those starters, I found incredibly impressive. You don't want to run this team in the playoffs. The only guys that have taken Allen out of the playoffs in recent years have been Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. It's a special player, great team, great defense. This Bills team, really, really scary going down the stretch of the season. The Buffalo Bills, who, by the way, could clinch the division this weekend before we even get into the starter advent calendars, the Bills are the 2nd best team in the National Football League. And that leaves number 1, and they've been number 1 the last couple of weeks. It is the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the best team in the National Football League. We'll see them tomorrow on Thanksgiving. And Dan Campbell, What'd y'all do once again?
Kneecap. 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 Kneecap.
Every single week, that's exactly what they do. So the Colts were like a trendy upset pick over the Lions. I didn't really understand that much, but listen, props to Dan Campbell, to that Lions team for getting the job done despite not their best offensive performance. Fun fact, the Lions have never won a game on Thanksgiving under Dan Campbell. We'll see if they can change that against the Bears. But something that is just shocking. I can't understand it. I can't wrap my brain around it. Maybe a coach or a player could describe it to me better than I'm trying to. This Lions defense has been better without Aiden Hutchinson, who I think is one of the 5 best pass rushers alive when he's healthy. You talk about points per game, down with that since Aiden Hutchinson suffered, God bless him, that devastating leg injury. Pressure rate up. All these different major defensive stats, they've been great. They're the second, folks, the Lions, the second ranked scoring defense in the National Football League. I keep saying, Ben Johnson's going to be a head coach in 2025. I think he should go to the Chicago Bears and go with Caleb Williams. We'll see what he decides to do. Ben Johnson's brilliant. Aaron Glenn needs to be getting some interviews to be a head coach. Aaron Glenn has done an amazing job with this defense. Listen, we understand the Lions got the best O-line, running game, weapons, Jared Goff. They've all been great. No question about it. But what this coaching staff has done, I think, is outstanding, is off the charts. This Lions defense is why I picked them to win the NFC this year, why I just picked them to go to the NFC title game last year, is that same offense, but with a better defense, despite not having their best defensive player, which is just shocking. But the Lions are rolling. They've won 9 games in a row. They're smoking everybody, it seems like. The Detroit Lions are the best team in the National Football League for the second week in a row. All right, before we can move on to Thanksgiving Day predictions, let's go ahead and look at Bryce's best 10 right here. Put it all in one graphic. So from 10 to 1, I haven't seen Denver on that graphic ever. So that's weird, but props to them. They've been one of the best teams. But Broncos at 10, followed by the Chargers, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Ravens. And in the top 5 from 5 to 1, it is my Steelers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, and up top the list is my adopted team. My favorite team is the Steelers. I'm a fan of the Steelers, but I believe in the Lions from, really before anyone else did. And I was, again, folks may not know this, I was probably the biggest Dan Campbell skeptic there ever was during that press conference. Because obviously we have our preconceived notions about the Lions as a franchise. Okay, they're going to win, 5-6 games a year. They're going to get trounced on Thanksgiving by a good team. Peyton Manning used to go to Detroit and torch them, and so did Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Actually, did Aaron ever play there on Thanksgiving? I'm actually not sure the Packers did play. Either way. And then this guy comes in, we're going to bite kneecaps. I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a mess. And they were bad that first year. But the thing about that first year I saw is, well, they're fighting their guts out to the final whistle. And then they come back the next year, they get off to a rough start. I'm like, okay, Dan Campbell's probably going to be fired at the end of the season. But they go from 1-6 to winning 8 of their last 10 games, including week 18. And folks, this is the moment that I bought into Dan Campbell. The moment I bought into the Detroit Lions. Detroit going into week 18. I don't know if folks probably remember this. End of the 2022 season at Lambeau Field, at Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who had been rolling at that point. Detroit knew they still had a shot to make the playoffs, but they needed the Seahawks to lose earlier in the day, and they needed to win on Sunday Night Football. The Seahawks not only won in overtime on a walk-off field goal. So devastating. By the way, that game ends less than an hour before kickoff against the Green Bay Packers. So with less than an hour before what they assume was their most important game of the season, they know, regardless, you can win 1,000-0. You're not making the playoffs. And they went in and beat Green Bay. Green Bay they didn't need Seattle. They were just like, we win and we're in. Detroit needed help. Detroit didn't get the help. They were out, and they still beat Green Bay. And that was the last game Aaron Rodgers ever played as a Green Bay Packer. That's what the Detroit Lions did. And from that moment on, when I saw what they did in the draft, when I saw some of the moves they're making, I'm like, yeah, this team's going to the NFC title game. I predicted that in April of 2023. They ended up making it in January of 2024. I picked them in September of this year to go to the Super Bowl, and I feel fantastic about that pick out of the NFC. Speaking of the Lions, while I'm waxing poetic about Detroit, let's go and talk about their matchup against the Chicago Bears. Let's talk about our matchups on Thanksgiving Day, because we've got 3 in their own ways interesting matchups. Even the Dallas Giants game is somewhat noteworthy. So, first of all, it's Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions, and I have dubbed this my third annual Gobble It Up Game of the Year, baby. There you go. So, Lions are favored in this game by a lot, by 9.5 over their division rival Chicago Bears. So, I gotta say this. I love Detroit. Like, everybody knows, I mean, I just literally went on did a poetry thing about how much I love the Lions. 9.5 in division rival. Dan Campbell's number 1 on Thanksgiving Day. He's 0-3 as the Lions head coach on Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, for the Chicago Bears, they've lost their last 2, but ever since firing Shane Waldron, I don't know, Caleb Williams has been outstanding. Passer rating over 100, only 2 touchdowns, but has been efficient. Again, took the bad sack at the end of the Vikings game. Like, he's got to learn to cut those plays. You know, be aggressive, like we just talked about Josh Allen, but cut the reckless plays out of your game. He's a rookie. He'll do that over time, especially once he gets better coaching, hopefully next year. But if there's one thing I know, is the Packers and the Vikings are obviously better than the Bears. Caleb took them down the wire, could have beaten them twice. Got them into field goal range against the Packers. Green Bay just blocked the kick. And what are you going to do? It wasn't Caleb's fault. Down 11, 30 seconds to go. Touchdown. They recover the onside kick. One throw gets them to field goal range. They tie the game and send it to overtime before they lose to the Minnesota Vikings. Point being, Caleb Williams has been out of this world the last 2 games. So he's kind of on a roll. Short week. Detroit, as great as Aaron Glenn is, not a ton of time to prepare for the Bears and Caleb Williams. So maybe Caleb could be seeing some more basic concepts as opposed to what he'd be seeing on a Sunday. So all that to say this. In a division rival, again, I know Detroit's rolling. I get it. 9.5 is too many points. Give me the Bears plus 9.5. The Lions will win this game. I'm not going a crazy upset here. The Lions will win this game by a final score of 27-21. I think this will be a close game, an entertaining game. The Detroit Lions will win this game 27-21, but Bears plus 9.5. 9.5 is too many points here. Not in a short week, not in a divisional matchup, not in a game where Caleb Williams has been really good. By the way, Brian Flores is an amazing defensive coordinator like Aaron Glenn, and he torched that defense. Torched them. So who's to say he can't do the same to the Detroit Lions on a short week? So that is it for our Gobble Up Game of the Year. That's fun. We do that every Thanksgiving. All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. Their Thanksgiving Day game. They host the New York Giants. These are 2 lowly teams at this point in the season. Matter of fact, they're a combined 6-16. So to put it mildly, these seasons have not gone quite as expected. The Giants released Daniel Jones. Congrats to Daniel Jones, now Minnesota Viking. Hopefully he pans out over there. But the Tommy DeVito thing didn't work. He's out for this game. Matter of fact, he didn't even fly to Dallas with the team. So Tommy DeVito is not going to be playing in this game. It's going to be Drew Lock. The last line of defense, essentially, from the quarterback position for this team. Dallas is favored by, what do we got? 3.5 at home. Keep in mind, saying, Dallas. Now, Dallas, I would say, both teams don't have a ton of talent. Here goes the Wi-Fi again. If we're talking about individual units, I think the New York Giants defensive line is one of not just the strongest unit in this game, one of the strongest units in the National Football League, bar none. So they could give this Dallas offensive line some real problems. Here's what I also know. Dallas, one of the worst defenses in football. Giants got clobbered by Tampa Bay. What did we get after the game? Malik Neighbors. I can't impact the game if I don't get the ball. Can I get the ball? I'm the best receiver in the team. Can you give me the football? Oh, you'll get the opportunity on Thanksgiving, my man. Drew Lock will give you those opportunities. Brian Dable will do the same. Dallas has not won a home game since New Year's Eve, December 30th of 2023. It has been nearly a calendar year. I get that the best opportunity to do that would be against the lowly 2-9 Giants, who we're not certain aren't tanking. But Drew Lock ain't in the business of tanking. You remember that game in Seattle when he was Geno Smith's backup, when he beat an Eagles team that was maybe the Super Bowl or the NFC favorite at the time, at home, leads the game-winning drive. And that Eagles team, as much as they struggled down the stretch of that season, better than this Cowboys team. Give me the upset. Give me the Giants to win this game in Dallas. Listen, the Cowboys, people say, oh, the Cowboys own the Giants. No. Dak Prescott owns the New York Giants. Has not lost to them since 2016. And last I checked, Dak Prescott ain't playing this game. Give me the Giants in the upset, plus 3.5, and the money line, 24-22 over the Dallas Cowboys. Come on. I get y'all won a game. Congratulations. I'm going out for you guys, but Drew Lock. And I'll say this: if Tommy DeVito was playing, I'd pick Dallas. I don't think Tommy DeVito is very good. The whole thing with his agent is kind of gimmicky. I'd definitely take Dallas. Drew Lock's a solid backup. Drew Lock again is like a poor man's Baker Mayfield in play and in aura. He's a gamer, i.e. Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston. He's kind of cut from that cloth. Either he's going to throw 3 interceptions and be awful, or he's going to lead a Giants win, which they have not done that in quite some time, really, since I think Seattle was their last win this season. At Seattle was the New York Giants' last win. So give me the Giants in an upset over the Dallas Cowboys. And finally, probably the most anticipated game just in terms of the matchup and the storylines, no doubt, is the Miami Dolphins going to Green Bay, Wisconsin to take on the Packers, who are playing in their second consecutive Thanksgiving Day square off. The Packers are favored at home, -3.5. So the story in this game, and frankly, I get the Tua defenders and the Dolphins fans and the Dolphins media, I read the articles, are saying, oh, this Tua playing in cold weather narrative is just nonsense. It's not true. It's the stuff of fiction. Well, bad news for those folks. The numbers say it's actually quite true. Can we look at Tua Tagovailoa in temperatures of 50 degrees or colder? Can we show those numbers? Because he's terrible. 9 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, completing 57% of his passes, barely a passer rating of 70, and a record of 1-7. Well, last I checked to this game in Green Bay, it's going to be in the teens, around the teens at kickoff. I mean, again, just let's use common sense before we even check the weather. Let's see. It's going to be 80. I'm sorry. It's Thanksgiving night in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Probably not going to be very, very warm. Let's look at Tua Tagovailoa, by the way, in temperatures of 40 degrees or colder. Not very good either. 4 touchdowns, 5 picks, 54% completion, a 68 passer rating, and he has never won. He is 0-4. So this is an opportunity for Tua to, I don't think, end the narrative. One great game isn't going to make those numbers all of a sudden look great. It sure as heck helped. Not just the Dolphins season, because Miami's kind of on the outside looking in. Denver's playing well, even though the Chargers lost. Chargers going to be a playoff team, and we know Pittsburgh, Baltimore, whoever comes in second is going to be, in all likelihood, the 5 seed in that division, given the fact that both beat the Chargers. Miami can still sneak at the playoffs. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Tua is playing great. He was unbelievable against the lowly Patriots, but it's still still division rival. You got the job done. But can he go to Lambeau? Can he go and get the Packers team that's red hot right now? Can you play a team in the cold weather and get the job done? Meanwhile, for Green Bay, Josh Jacobs has been unbelievable. I remember I was so shocked. My sister, who is a Packers fan, loves the Green Bay Packers, loves Aaron Jones, had his jersey, loves Aaron Jones. I remember we were in, I think we were actually in Disney World in March for spring break, and the news breaks, Aaron Jones is cut by the Packers. And she was devastated. I was surprised. I'm like, God, this guy was great last year. What the heck? And then they had Josh Jacobs. I'm like, yeah, sis, y'all upgraded. Y'all got better over the course of this offseason. Josh Jacobs, 3 touchdowns on the ground against the San Francisco 49ers. Jaden Reed doing his thing. Dontavian Wicks. Christian Watson's going to catch the deep balls. He's got a great opportunity to kind of redeem himself. Listen, I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to Tua. Forget being great, just being good in the cold weather. Mike McDaniel, I will say this, has to set the tone as the head coach of this football team. Remember the last freezing game that they played, colder than the one that's going to be played tomorrow night, when the Dolphins went to Kansas City in that playoff game. It was my favorite, if I were a betting man, of my show's history. When it was Chiefs -4.5 against the Dolphins in cold weather. Are you kidding me? Hammer the Chiefs on that one. And Mike McDaniel looked like he was freezing his arse off the entire game for 3.5 hours. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world but Kansas City, Missouri on that Saturday night. In this matchup, not as cold, but still pretty darn chilly, he's got to set the stone for this football team to get the job done. He may very well do that. Tua, he'll try his best. God bless him. Good guy. Don't trust the cold weather. Packers, the easy bet here. Give me the Packers -3.5 and to win 24-16 over the Miami Dolphins. Packers 24, Dolphins 16 to cap off Turkey Day in the National Football League. So going back over my predictions. Gobbled Up Game of the Year. Matter of fact, can we get the sound effect there? Just want to do that one last time. That's fun. In the Gobble Up Game of the Year, give me the Lions 27-21 over the Bears, but Bears plus 9.5. 9.5's too many points on a short week in a divisional matchup where the other quarterback is playing really well. In the second game in Dallas, it is always the most watched game of the year. Giants in the upset. Drew Lock instead of Tommy DeVito. I'd pick the Cowboys if DeVito was a starter, but Drew Lock's going to do his thing. Cowboys defense is very good. Cowboys at home are an atrocity. Giants aren't much better, but I think this Giants defensive line could cause maybe a couple forced fumbles on Rico Dowdle, on Cooper Rush. Give me the Giants in this matchup 24-22. And on Thursday night, on Thanksgiving night, give me the Green Bay Packers over the Miami Dolphins by a final score of 24-16. And helps Green Bay keep pace in the division. At the very least, could they at least get the 5 seed, which is an enviable spot given you get either a weak NFC West champion potentially or a weak NFC South champion. So the 5 seed, more so in the AFC, but certainly in the NFC as well, is an enviable spot. And as for Miami, I think their playoff hopes could potentially be dashed if the Packers beat them. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at a different time. It is Black Friday. What we're going to do, we're going to go live at noon Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, live on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel, the Grid Network YouTube channel. Going to talk about these 3 games. Going to do the Vol View. What a big-time weekend in college football. And for my Vols, 1 win away, baby, from the college football playoff. Excited about that. And, of course, it's Friday. We're going to predict all the games, including a Black Friday game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs, as well as, obviously, the games on Sunday, including my upset of the week, Bryce's Bleak Bet, and my favorite 3 games for if I were a betting man. So tune in, Carving Up Live at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific Time on Black Friday. Just as importantly, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Please tell, especially it's Thanksgiving, so around the table, please tell your friends about the show, your family about the show, everybody about the show, except for your sleeping cat. And Nealon's been extra jumpy as of late. I think he's hyped up about the Vols being ranked 8th in the college football playoff rankings and being the 9 seed in the CFP rankings because of the events of last Saturday. He's very excited about that. He's been wanting to see his Vols be relevant for some time, and I think he's going to get to see it. I think we're all going to get to see it here in the great state of Tennessee. But again, please tell your friends about the show. Yeah, Thanksgiving. Tell your cousins to subscribe, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, anybody who's got YouTube, subscribe to the show and follow obviously on social media. And just as importantly, be sure to go tell them to subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. All right, I'm hyped for the game tomorrow. I am excited for Thanksgiving. Just trust you me. There's going to be some great dishes. My mom, by the way, shout out to you, Mom, makes a mean corn casserole. It's outstanding. I don't even like casserole other than hers, but it's unbelievable. I'm going to have plenty of that. Going to have some ham. Ham's better than turkey. Going to have all the sweet potatoes, with the marshmallows, by the way. Fantastic. But I'm going to have some pumpkin pie at the end of the night. Ooh! That's sounding good right now. But I'll see you guys on Friday again at noon Eastern Standard Time to talk about the games tomorrow night, as well as the Vol View and predictions for Friday and Sunday's action round of the National Football League. All right, we'll see everybody then. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. I'll tell you what. Pumpkin pie is awesome. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.